I'm Rick Zamperin, and this is the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. After nearly a dozen years as mayor of Lincoln and several more as a town councillor, Mayor Sandra Easton is getting ready to ride into the sunset. What led to this decision? What does she plan to do next? And what does she think the future holds for Niagara? Mayor Easton joins us today on Newsmakers. Mayor Easton, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Rick.
I want to start with maybe towards the end. You've decided not to seek re-election in the municipal election this October. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, it becomes a practical matter of your own good health and the pace that the job requires and the commitment. And I feel that this is a good time for me to step away. It's been extremely successful, and I've enjoyed every moment, pretty much every moment. But yes, I think that 12 years of one person leading on a message is generally quite adequate for the public.
Was there a moment, maybe in the last 6 months or a year, where you thought, I'm getting towards the end here?
Yeah, that happened in December of 2025, and I had that conversation with my husband, but I didn't really feel 100% comfortable with it until February of this year. And
what made you comfortable?
I think it was just time. The fact that I admitted that I wanted that change, and I wanted to, it's always about spending more time with your family and friends. Things just fall by the wayside. And so I just had that moment, and I found that I was not waffling on it. I knew it was the right decision.
Right. You started as a town councillor several years earlier. Why'd you get into politics? What drew you to this arena?
I can't tell you now why in 1983 that I decided to run in that election, but there was something about public service that appealed to me. I'm a nurse by discipline. And I was working at McMaster at the time. I was the patient care coordinator in the emergency department. But I saw things not happening in some cases, and in other cases, changes in the community. It intrigued me. And so I decided to run in Ward 1, which is where I lived, and the rest is pretty much history.
Yeah. That commitment to the community. You mentioned you were a retired nurse. Being on town council, being the mayor, you're servicing or serving the constituents or the community. Why'd you get into that? Was there a family member that was doing the same? Did you just feel the need to give yourself to the community?
Well, I thought about this, and if I go back to my third great grandfather, John Grubb, he was the path master for the road where the farmhouse is, which is the property that we live on now. So that was on my mother's side of the family, somebody who had an interest and was given that responsibility. On my dad's side, one of my dad's brothers was the deputy reeve of Clinton Township. So it was there.
And all these years later, you resurrected that, and 12 years later as mayor, you're, as I said, riding into the sunset. You're not going out with a whimper, so to speak. You made what I thought was a great statement at last month's State of the Town address, where you said, quote, "Political colleagues need to buck up." What did you mean by that?
Well, I was beginning to observe that since the reform issues at the region had surfaced in the way that they did. To say that it was explosive is maybe a little bit over the top, but it certainly was more than a pop. And what I was observing was that very, very competent, well-informed, committed individuals were becoming very quiet. And they really were losing a lot of that energy that the communities were, had been benefiting from. And so I was challenging them, put this aside. It'll take the route that it takes the route. But in the meantime, people are looking to all of us for leadership. And I don't think that the leadership piece, by the way, ends when you decide you're not going to be the mayor or a councillor. I think you're done at being invisible. And so I was just really poking at them and saying, buck up, get with it. You're the same person and you have the same talents and the same commitment.
Were you surprised by their silence?
I was.
Yeah.
I was, and I felt saddened by it because I thought, if this is what happens when you actually step out and start making more forceful statements about the importance of change, then what does that do in the future? Does it mean that people don't bother? Right. I certainly hope that isn't the case.
It says to me the silence is almost as if they want to play it safe, and they don't want to say something that might be taken one way or another. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's fair. I mean, change is very difficult for the public to accept. It's difficult for everyone at different times, and the response was pretty forceful in that regard.
I want to circle back to the reform debate, if you will, but I want to ask you about being the mayor. What does it take to be a great mayor?
Well, I don't know if I've been a great mayor, but I've been a consistent mayor.
Okay.
And I think that I know that is really, really important. Keep in mind that for my whole nursing career, problems were solved using something called the nursing process. It's very regimented, and it gets you outcomes. People get better for the most part. And so we have a very similar model in the municipalities that starts with things like an asset management plan, a transportation master plan, water and wastewater, all of these things, recreation plans. There's all kinds of things there. They can sit on a shelf, or you can actually update them from time to time and start to create work plans. Lincoln has always had a strategic plan. It's taken from the time at the door. That's one of the first things that you do. What did you hear at the door? You set the strategic plan and those priorities, and then work with the staff to create the work plan. They do most of the work plan because that's their area of expertise, and we go on from there. But then you have to be able to execute. I think I'm very strong with execution because my leadership style is to remind people, we've made an investment here. We can connect a dot here. These things go together to try and help people that are feeling nervous about public opinion move forward, and to remind them, don't lose everything. Don't forget about all of these things that we have already heard from many, many people. Let's get them into the plan and let's get on with it. And we had great staff. I've been very, very fortunate. We've had a great staff, and I have three great councils, and we don't worry about agreeing, but we do get on with the work. And I think that's been very beneficial.
You said that you didn't think you were a great mayor. Why is that? Are you just harsh on yourself, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know what makes a great mayor.
Right.
I suppose, I've certainly offended people, and I do stand my ground. So is that a great mayor? Maybe. If you agree with me, you would say, yeah, that's the quality of a great mayor. But I think that being consistent, setting those goals, and then getting the work done, having your eye always on getting the work done is most beneficial for a municipality.
Would that be your advice to those who are seeking your chair in the next election?
Yes, and I think that commitment, if you have it in your mind that this is a small commitment, you need to put that aside right away, because even if you're doing much, much less than myself and mayors that came before me, it will be more and more demanding. I think the future will be quite different.
I'm sure you learned a lot in your earlier political days as a councillor. What was the biggest thing you learned as mayor of Lincoln?
The biggest difference is that we have a model now where there is a role for council and there is a role for professional staff. Staying in your lane is a favorite comment. And sometimes it's hard to stay in your
Sure,
lane.
those lines get blurred sometimes.
Yeah, but that's probably the biggest change. So there are qualified people in the House, and they know what they're doing, and they can guide us, and they can provide options for us, and it's up to us to analyze those options and to decide how they fit in with the plan. Is this on the work plan? Have we ever heard of this before? Yes, it's on the work plan. What does it relate to? It goes back to this master plan. It goes back to this strategic priority, which came from the public. And that's how you just keep following through.
If you were starting your political journey now, how would you do anything different, or would you go on the same kind of path in terms of your approach to the job and how you got things done?
Well, I mean, I suppose I probably could have done less work, but, that's not likely.
Right.
No, when I finished the 6 years as a counselor, I actually went to Queen's and completed my master's in public administration, and that was tremendously beneficial. That provided me with a lot of background, because you study a good deal about local politics, local governance.
What would you say are your biggest achievements while in office?
Well, first of all, a lot of what we've achieved is with partners. So I think the one that really stands out is West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, because it was a partnership that was created with myself and the two existing mayors, who was Bob Bentley and Doug Joyner, in Grimsby and West Lincoln. And we took a very firm stance on this project, and we never let it go. And then there were two new mayors that came in from Grimsby and West Lincoln, and we continued on. And that was very beneficial, that we were always on the same wavelength. So I would say that was, by and large, the greatest. Another long-term achievement in Lincoln was really the Lincoln Museum and Cultural Center, the Jordan Historical Museum of the 20. That was a great build, and we're very proud of it. It's very busy. It's doing everything that we want. And probably a third thing is a recent purchase from the District School Board of Niagara with Beamsville District Secondary School, which is now being referred to as the Lincoln Community Hub. And so we're at the point where the staff are going to be issuing an expression of interest to see what we can do on the property. It's a 13, 14 acre property. We have a lot of sports activities going on inside right now, drop-in clinic, great seniors programming, but there's so much more that can happen, particularly around mental health, primary care, programming, intermingling the programming around medical diagnostics, if you will, to make sure that care is close to home.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing community hub that brings a lot of services into one place. Yes. Do you have an estimated timeline on it?
I don't. I think we're looking at 2029, before there's really much that would happen. We have the Housing Select Committee worked with a group in the community around affordable housing, so that's another part of it as well.
How would you describe Lincoln when you first joined town council, and what would you say to the present-day person who maybe didn't see it all those years ago?
I mean, back in 1983?
Yeah, it's a very different place, isn't it?
It is a very, very different place. Yeah. It seems to me that we had more meetings then.
Really?
Yes, and but we've consolidated things differently, and I think I really believe in the structure of how we make decisions and how we execute, and that it didn't exist in the same way at all.
So what would be the big difference between then and now? Not necessarily from a municipal standpoint, but just like the vibe or the buzz in Lincoln.
Well, it's interesting because it depends on who you are. If you are not accepting in any way of the growth patterns that the province has given, that's one thing. That brings a lot of unhappiness to people, unfortunately. However, if you're businesses, especially if you're an ag-related business, if you're a greenhouse, we've had really a huge increase in businesses. You're very happy with what's happening. If you're the grape growers of Ontario, you're very happy because we've supported all of those sectors in order to help them reach their goals by lobbying. We lobby with the province as well.
Was there something on your wish list that you didn't get to or you hoped to achieve during your time?
Yeah, I am very disappointed that GO has not been implemented by now. It is a significant disappointment because it's one project that could make such a massive difference to people that are coming into Niagara. It would have a huge impact on tourism.
Why has it taken so long? I mean, this is something we've been talking about for decades.
I don't think there's really an answer to that. Maybe it's as simple as there's just too many priorities to deal with. But, given the history of Niagara and what has happened in the last 12 years, given the commitments that the province is making, they certainly see the value of Niagara and in Niagara. So it's about money. It's about setting priorities again, getting the work done.
A lot of work to be done when it comes to government reform in Niagara. Where do you think it starts and what does it look like when it's all said and done?
Undoubtedly, I'm thinking about the solutions more simply than is fair. But you have to begin somewhere, otherwise you're not going to achieve anything at all. I believe in the four-city model. I think it's an interim model because none of us really knows what things will look like or could look like and the kind of benefits that could come from working more closely together. It's the issue really of duplication. The story about having too many politicians is fine if that's your story. But whether we have 6 people at the table or 8 people, next term we'll have 6 people. Was it harmful to have 8? Of course not. Does it give you good discussion? Of course it does. However, that's changed now, so we'll modify accordingly. So I like the four-city model, and I like the idea of West Niagara being clustered. But I don't think that it means that you have to get rid of all the municipalities. I just think that the operations of the municipalities could take on a completely different complexion. And if you build into that the accountabilities, the monitoring, to ensure that when you take things out, you're not putting them back in. Things aren't sliding in. Because I think, Rick, that we've reached a point now with the government money that's coming to us, it's going to be very, very difficult without a massive change in priority setting at communities to really be able to afford to continue on.
How much longer do you think it can continue on?
Well, I guess we're going to see what happens. We haven't heard anything now. The election is on October 26th, and then we'll see what the province has in mind, if they have anything in mind. And if they don't, then there's certainly been a lot of strong commitment, I think, amongst councillors to do something different. The council will be different. It will be made up of 12 mayors. That's going to be a big workload. It's a big workload now. It'll be a big workload. So everybody, will be modifying how they do things.
Is the representation issue one of the big ones to kind of smooth out in terms
Sure.
of you live in certain parts of Niagara, you want to have a voice, right?
Yes, sure. That certainly, that needs a lot of discussion.
Mm-hmm. And is that just simplified with, a representative from each area of Niagara? Is that basically how you think it could work?
Well, I think there's talk about weighted votes, and
Yeah.
so you have to work it through. You have to work it through so that everybody understands what it means. When you're talking about those numbers, what does it mean? And what happens if what happens if you're not able to achieve any regional funding
Right.
for infrastructure projects in your community? Right now, Lincoln is in a very good position. We have had the region support for a number of years now with some of our really important infrastructure.
What do you think is the biggest opportunity for not only Lincoln, but Niagara as a whole?
I think it's transformational, if you want it to be. There's a couple of professors at Brock University, one in particular, that wrote a paper on essentially patterning decision-making. And when I read it, I thought of Niagara immediately, talking to the same people, talking about the same things, not stirring things up too much. And so we have to move away from that and not be afraid to, and start to build confidence in a different team and move forward.
What's next for you?
Yes, always the best question. Well, there's a few committees that are out there, I'm sure.
Are they knocking on your door to say, hey, we'd like you to join us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a little break. I'm sure my husband would like to see me a little bit more. My grandchildren are growing up, so yes, yeah. I don't see myself doing anything really. I'm not looking for another job
Right.
at this point.
You want to enjoy retirement.
Yeah, I think I will. It would be good to get to the cottage. We haven't been there very much.
In terms of legacy, what do you think of when people say your name and considering all the things that you've accomplished? What comes to mind from a legacy standpoint that you're proud of?
Well, good or bad, people will say that she got a lot done, or she did too much.
And why is that a bad thing?
I think change is impossible for people.
Right.
It is just really very, very difficult, and so while you have to have a sensitivity to that, and you should have a sensitivity to it, it can't be the driver. And I never allowed it to be the driver because I lived in the community my whole life. I didn't see very much happening, and it seemed to me that this was the time to make some changes, and then we'll see what the next person does.
Yeah. Last one for you. Is it going to feel a little weird on Election Day, October 26th, as you're sitting at home and maybe watching coverage or listening to it?
I may be here, you may be having a big party, or I may come to CHCH to do...
You're more than welcome.
To do election night. Yes, it will. It will.
Yeah.
It will. But I have to say I'm very satisfied with my decision. I'm very comfortable with it. And I'm sure there'll be days when I'll certainly miss the pace of the way things are going, but I'll be happy not to have the worries as well.
Yeah, there are some pros and cons for sure.
Yes.
Mayor Easton, thank you so much for the time today. Congrats on all that you've achieved. You get to enjoy the cottage as well. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, that is a wrap for the Newsmakers podcast. A big thank you to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe. You can leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.